Wedding anniversary. I was drugged with hallucinogens by my husband Julian and his beloved. They forcibly sent me to a mental hospital, converted from the city's most haunted house. They declared to the outside world that I was crazy, so they could be together smoothly. Julian, separated by the visiting window, spoke gently but coldly. "Scarlett, you should stay here, it's better for all of us." I looked at the shadows clinging to the corners of the wall behind him, staring at me with curiosity, and smiled calmly. "Tonight is the night of the full moon on the 15th. Newbie, room 307, be honest with me." The orderly roughly pushed me into the ward, and the iron door slammed shut behind me. The room was filled with the strange smell of disinfectant and mildew, and the walls were mottled. "My name is Scarlett, Julian's wife, legally married and properly wedded. Today is our 3rd wedding anniversary. It's also the first day I was sent to the mental hospital by him. Just a few hours ago, he held me in his arms and whispered sincere promises in my ear. Then he and his beloved Penelope drugged my champagne together, a drug that can cause severe hallucinations, leading to mental confusion. They watched me make a fool of myself, watched me being taken away as a real madwoman, their eyes cold. Penelope leaned on Julian's shoulder, timidly saying, "Yen, will Scarlett's sister be okay? I'm so scared." Julian held her and comforted her softly. "It's okay, she's just sick and there are professional doctors here who will cure her." I looked around this gloomy ward, and the corners of my mouth turned up. They calculated everything, but they miscalculated one thing. Since I was a child, I have had a special physique, a pair of yin-yang eyes that can see ghosts and spirits, and communicate with souls. And this Kongning mental hospital was formerly a haunted house from the Republican era. For hundreds of years, countless wronged souls have been bound here, unable to be reincarnated. Here is other people's hell. But it's my home field. A female ghost wearing a Republican student uniform is curiously suspended on the ceiling, tilting her head to look at me. In the corner, a ghost wearing a tattered military uniform still carries an undispersed murderous aura. Outside the window, a white-clad female ghost is quietly floating by. I smiled at them, showing a friendly smile. "Everyone, I'm new here, sorry for the disturbance." The female ghost in the student uniform seemed to have never seen someone who could see them and be so calm, and floated down, circling around me. "You can see me?" Her voice was ethereal. I nodded. "Aren't you afraid?" "Why should I be afraid?" I asked. "Compared to you, living people are more terrifying." As soon as I finished speaking, the orderly's scolding came from outside the door, accompanied by another patient's screams and cries. The sharp sound pierced the night sky and alarmed the old friends in the room. I could feel a wave of cold air gathering from all directions, and the temperature of the entire room suddenly dropped. Tonight is the 15th, the night of the full moon, when the yin energy is at its peak. It is also when my power is at its strongest. I sat cross-legged on the bed, closed my eyes, and slowly released my own aura. A gentle but powerful force spread from me as the center to the entire hospital. Those restless cold auras instantly quieted down after coming into contact with my power, like wandering souls who have found their backbone. I spoke softly, my voice reaching every corner of the hospital. "Everyone, my name is Scarlett. From tonight onwards, I will be the new owner here. Who agrees, who opposes?" As soon as I finished speaking, the entire ward fell silent. Even the white-clad female ghost wandering outside the window stopped and stared at me through the iron bars, her pale face fixed on me. The military ghost with the heaviest murderous aura in the corner slowly walked towards me. With each step he took, the yin energy in the room became heavier. The female ghost in the student uniform was frightened and hid behind me. "He is the ghost king here, named Jasper, died on the battlefield, has the most resentment, and doesn't obey anyone." I understood. Any place has its own rules and king. Jasper stopped in front of me. He was tall, and even as a ghost, the pressure of a soldier still existed. "New owner." He sneered, his voice a muffled roar from his chest. "Little girl, you have a big mouth, why should we?" I opened my eyes and looked at him calmly. "Just because I can let you no longer suffer the pain of being trapped here, can clear your grievances, send you into reincarnation, and be reborn into a good life." My gaze swept over all the ghosts present. "You are entrenched here, only because you have obsessions in your hearts, and your grievances are hard to dispel. I can help you. But you must be used by me. The murderous aura on Jasper surged a little. Obviously my words touched him. But he was still skeptical. Empty words, who believes them? I stretched out my hand and gently touched the air with my fingertip. A ray of soft golden light overflowed from my fingertip and slowly floated towards him. The moment the light touched Jasper, the thick black mist-like murderous aura on his body retreated by half. The lines on his face, twisted by resentment, also softened a little. Jasper was stunned, reaching out his hand as if he wanted to touch the golden light. That was the light of merit. I am born with spiritual abilities and can also cultivate. Over the years, the merit I have accumulated is enough to purify their grievances. Now, do you believe it? I asked. Jasper was silent. The other ghosts became excited and crowded around me. Can you help me find my child? I've been looking for him for 50 years. A middle-aged female ghost cried. I was falsely accused of stealing and beaten to death. Can you help me find the real killer? A thin male ghost said resentfully. I agreed to each request, promising that as long as they listened to me, I would fulfill their wishes one by one. Finally, I looked at Jasper. What about you? What is your obsession? Jasper looked at me, his expression complex, and finally spoke in a hoarse voice. My bones are still left on the northern battlefield. I want to go home. I nodded solemnly. Okay, I promise you. Subduing Jasper was equivalent to subduing all the ghosts in the hospital. I looked at the bright moonlight outside the window and took a deep breath. Julian, Penelope. The first gift I'm sending you is coming soon. The next morning, Julian arrived. He was wearing a neat suit, his hair was combed, and he had a worried look on his face. He looked at me through the visiting window, his eyes full of pity. Scarlett, how are you feeling? Did you sleep well last night? Penelope stood beside him. She was wearing a white dress with delicate makeup, and her eyes were red. Scarlett, don't be afraid. A yen will definitely find the best doctor to cure you. What a touching scene of deep affection. If I hadn't experienced it myself, I might have been moved by them. I sat on the hospital bed, not speaking, just looking at them with empty eyes. This was an essential skill for feigning madness. Julian seemed very satisfied with my condition. A smile flashed across his face, and then he put on a painful expression. Scarlett, don't worry, I'll take care of the company and the family. You don't have to think about anything, just focus on getting better. He paused, his tone becoming cold and threatening. As long as you're obedient, I guarantee you'll have no worries for the rest of your life. But if you still want to play any tricks... He didn't finish, but the warning in his eyes was self-evident. I sneered inwardly. Play tricks? The real show is yet to come. I looked past him at the corridor behind him. Jasper was standing there silently with several ghosts. I signaled with my eyes. Jasper understood, nodded to me, and his figure disappeared instantly. Visiting hours ended, and Julian and Penelope left hand in hand. They walked out of the hospital gate and got into the black Bentley. Inside the car, Penelope couldn't help but laugh triumphantly. Again, did you see how stupid she looked? It seems the medication hasn't worn off yet. Now we can finally relax. Julian started the car, a relaxed smile on his face as well. Just a madwoman, she can't make any waves. What gift do you want for tonight's celebration? I want. Before Penelope could finish her sentence, the car suddenly jolted violently, as if it had hit something. The two were startled. Julian immediately got out of the car to check, but the area around the car was empty. There was nothing there. What's going on? Penelope leaned out, her face pale. It's nothing, probably just my imagination. Julian frowned and got back into the car. But as soon as he fastened his seat belt, the car's stereo suddenly turned on automatically, emitting a shrill woman's cry that echoed in the confined space. Penelope screamed and clung to Julian's arm. Turn it off! Turn it off! Julian frantically tried to press the switch, but the stereo seemed out of control. He couldn't turn it off, and the crying grew louder. Just then, Penelope felt a chill on her neck, as if something cold was touching her. She stiffly lowered her head, and saw that the expensive diamond necklace around her neck had somehow turned into a writhing, cold blue snake. Penelope's screams almost pierced eardrums. She frantically tore at the snake on her neck, but the thing was slippery and she couldn't grab it. Julian was also frightened by this bizarre scene. He tried to soothe the almost hysterical Penelope while trying to help her. But just as his hand was about to touch the necklace, the snake suddenly disappeared. The diamond necklace was still hanging properly around Penelope's neck. The crying in the car also stopped abruptly. Everything returned to normal, as if everything just now had been an illusion. Penelope gasped for breath, her face as white as paper, her whole body trembling. Again, did you see it? A snake, there was a snake. Julian's face was also extremely ugly. He tried to remain calm and checked everything, saying in a low voice, "You were mistaken, Penelope, there's nothing there. You've been under too much stress lately." "No. I wasn't mistaken. It was real," Penelope retorted, her voice trembling. "And the crying just now. It was terrifying. That was just the stereo malfunctioning." Julian's tone began to grow impatient. He didn't like this feeling of being out of control. "No. It wasn't." Penelope grabbed his hand, her eyes filled with fear. "Again, this place is too strange. Let's go." Is it Scarlet?" "Shut up," Julian snapped, cutting her off. "Don't talk nonsense. She's just a madwoman now. What can she do?" Although he said that, the knuckles on his hand that was holding the steering wheel were white. He pressed down on the accelerator. Back at the company, as soon as he stepped into his office, he heard a crash sound. The Tang Sankai figurine that he cherished the most shattered into dust before his eyes. In the hospital room, I watched the scene through a live broadcast by a ghost who could pass through walls. This was just an appetizer. I looked at the student-uniformed female ghost who had been standing by my side. Her name was Stella. "Stella, didn't you say that you loved playing pranks when you were alive?" Stella's eyes lit up and she nodded excitedly. "Good," I said softly. "From today on you'll follow Penelope. You don't have to do anything big, just occasionally let her see something interesting or hear something fun." I wanted her to live in constant fear, to be paranoid, to be abandoned by everyone. I wanted her to taste what it was like to be treated like a madwoman. Stella took the task and floated away happily. I turned to look at Jasper. "General Chun, it's your turn. Julian's company is called Shengshi Group." Jasper nodded, the killing intent on his body stirring. "I want you to add something to the feng shui of his company." Shengshi Group CEO's office. Julian was restlessly dealing with a pile of documents. What happened today had unsettled him. He always felt that something was wrong. Just then, there was a knock on the office door, and his special assistant Wyatt walked in with a grave expression. "Mr. Julian, something happened." "What is it?" Julian didn't even look up. "The project in the west of the city, our biggest competitor, Hongyuan Group, suddenly proposed a brand new plan and obtained our internal pricing bottom line." "What?" Julian suddenly raised his head, his eyes sharp. "How is that possible? Only a few of our core executives know the quotation." Before Wyatt could finish speaking, Julian's cell phone vibrated wildly. On the other end of the phone was the person in charge of another project, his voice crying, "Mr. Julian, it's over." In the meeting just now, the vice president suddenly went crazy and shouted out all our trump cards and core technical parameters. A deal worth billions has fallen through. The vice president had been his confidant for 10 years. A chill rushed from the soles of Julian's feet to the top of his head. "Nonsense." Julian slammed the documents in his hand on the table. "Check it out for me. There must be a mole in the company. If you can't find it, you're all fired." Julian leaned back wearily in his chair. Of course, he didn't believe in ghosts and gods. But a series of strange events made his heart begin to waver. He kept a tank of expensive dragon fish in his office, said to attract wealth and ward off evil spirits. But today, he found that the dragon fish were all belly up, their scales were falling off in large patches, and their eyeballs were cloudy and protruding. The clivia on the windowsill, which he had spent a lot of money to maintain, not only had withered leaves, but also oozed a sticky black liquid and exuded a foul odor. The whole office was filled with an indescribable sense of oppression. This aura was precisely Jasper's doing. He drew a trace of the battlefield's baleful aura, and quietly destroyed the aura here. Enough to make the living unlucky and restless. At the same time, Penelope wasn't idle either. She was at home alone, preparing to take a comfortable rose petal bath. As she walked into the bathroom, a strong, rusty, bloody smell hit her face. A bathtub full of clear water had turned into viscous blood plasma, with black hair floating on the surface, and even a cloudy eyeball staring straight at her. Penelope's stomach churned, and she vomited on the spot. She scrambled out of the bathroom and called Julian, trembling. Ian, come back quickly. The house is haunted. On the other end of the phone, Julian's voice was full of impatience and exhaustion. Penelope, what are you talking nonsense about again? I'm swamped here. I'm not talking nonsense. The bathtub is full of blood and eyeballs. It's real. Penelope cried out. Julian was silent for a few seconds and finally compromised. Don't be afraid, I'll be right back. When Julian got home, everything was normal in the bathroom. The water in the tub was crystal clear, not to mention blood. There wasn't even a single hair. Penelope pointed at the bathtub, excitedly explaining what she had just seen. But Julian looked at her pale face, his eyes full of suspicion. Penelope, he grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. Have you not been resting well lately, and you're hallucinating? Like Scarlett before. I didn't. I really saw it. She shook her head vigorously, and the tears flowed even more fiercely. Ian, don't you believe me? It's not that I don't believe you, Julian sighed, his tone softened. I'm just worried about you. Why don't I find you a psychologist to see? Penelope's body stiffened. Back then, they used this excuse to send Scarlett to the mental hospital. Now is it her turn? She looked at Julian, the man she had worked so hard to steal, and for the first time, she read unfamiliar emotions in his eyes. In the mental hospital, I listened to the little ghost's vivid report and smiled with satisfaction. To destroy them, it must not only be from their careers but also from their minds. I want to make them mistrust each other, torment each other, until they personally push each other into the abyss. At this time, a young man in a hospital gown walked to the door of my ward, carrying a tray. His name is Finn, and he's one of the few doctors in this hospital who looks relatively normal. Every day, he takes the opportunity to deliver food and say a few words to me. Miss Scarlett, how are you feeling today? He handed the tray through the small window under the door and asked softly. I looked up at his fair and sincere face. I'm not sick, I said. This was the first time I had said such a thing to him. Finn was stunned for a moment, then smiled bitterly. I know, but I need evidence. Finn's words surprised me a little. I looked at him, trying to see something in his eyes. He seemed to see through my thoughts and lowered his voice. I haven't been working at this hospital for long. Your case is being handled by my tutor. I've read your medical records and all your pre-admission examination reports. Your mental state is very normal, but the people who sent you here have a lot of power. Why are you helping me? I asked. Finn pushed his glasses up, and a complex emotion flashed in his eyes. My sister used to be a patient here too. She was just as normal as you. But in the end, she died here. His voice was filled with repressed pain and hatred. This is a potential ally. Help me get a sample of the drugs they injected me with when I was admitted, and also help me pay attention to the movements of the director and Julian. Hearing my request, Finn's eyes were firm. Okay. He didn't ask any more questions, put away the tray, and hurried away. Looking at his back, I fell into deep thought. With a human ally, my plan will go much smoother. I summoned a ghost who was good at concealment and tracking, and asked him to secretly protect Finn. In the following days, the troubles of Shungshire Group grew bigger and bigger. First, the company's stock fell to the daily limit continuously and inexplicably, and its market value evaporated by billions. Immediately afterwards, the tax authorities and the Securities Regulatory Commission suddenly came to the door, saying that they had received an anonymous report and wanted to thoroughly investigate Shungshire Group. Julian was in a state of anxiety. He used all his connections to inquire about the news, but only received a vague reply. He had offended someone he shouldn't have offended. He racked his brains but couldn't figure out who he had offended. As for Penelope, she was on the verge of mental collapse with Stella's tireless company day and night. She could always see a strange face in the mirror, smiling at her in a bizarre way. The TV at home would turn on automatically at midnight, playing static. She also often had nightmares at night, always feeling a heavy weight pressing on her chest, unable to breathe or scream. Stella's icy voice whispered in her ear, counting all the evil deeds she had done to climb to the top. She was so frightened that she lost control of her bowels, her mind completely teetering on the brink of collapse. That day, when she screamed again because she saw someone under the bed, Julian finally exploded. "Penelope, have you had enough?" He pushed her away, his eyes bloodshot. "The company is about to be finished. Can you let me have some peace and quiet?" Penelope fell to the ground, looking at him in disbelief. "Julian, you're yelling at me? You're yelling at me for that damn company? Without this damn company, what would you use to buy your limited edition bags? What would you use to drive your sports car? Did you think that just because I love you, I would let you do whatever you want?" Penelope cried her heart out when she heard his heartless words. "Julian, you've changed. You weren't like this before." "I haven't changed." Julian looked down at her with cold eyes. "I just realize now how much trouble you are." After speaking, he slammed the door and left. In the villa, only Penelope's desperate cries remained, and Stella's giggles, only audible to Penelope, came from the corner. Julian's sanity was being eroded bit by bit. He began to believe that he was really possessed. Introduced by a business partner, he spent a lot of money to hire a feng shui master who was very famous in Hong Kong, surnamed Zhang. As soon as Master Zhang entered the Shengshi Group's building, he frowned deeply. "Mr. Julian, this place of yours is full of yin energy and surrounded by evil spirits. It's an ominous sign." Julian's heart sank, and he quickly invited the master into his office. Master Zhang walked around the office, his expression becoming more and more solemn. He pointed to the dragonfish that had all died. "Dead water destroys wealth." Then he pointed to the withered cymbidium. "Withered wood blocks fortune." Finally, he stopped in front of Julian's desk and stared intently at a landscape painting on the wall. Master Zhang's forehead was dripping with cold sweat. "There's something in the painting." Julian followed his gaze, and it was just a very ordinary painting. "Master, what's wrong with this painting?" "This painting is trapping a very fierce, vengeful spirit." Master Zhang took out a yellow talisman from his pocket and slapped it on the painting. With a sizzle sound, the yellow talisman burned spontaneously without fire and instantly turned to ashes. Master Zhang took 2 steps back in fright, his face pale. "What a powerful evil spirit! Mr. Julian, who did you offend? They are trying to take your life." Julian's legs went weak, and he almost didn't stand firm. In fact, there was nothing in the painting. All of this was just a play that I had Jasper and the others cooperate in staging. The purpose was to completely plunge Julian into panic. "Master, you must save me." Julian grabbed Master Zhang's arm and begged. Master Zhang composed himself and took out a peachwood sword and a bagua mirror from his magic toolbox, preparing to set up an altar. I watched all of this coldly. "Jasper, give him some color to see." Jasper took his orders. The next second, a strong wind suddenly blew in Julian's office. All the documents were blown all over the sky, and the window glass made a clattering sound. The landscape painting on the wall began to ooze bright red blood, dripping onto the expensive carpet. The office lights flickered wildly, and then all exploded. The whole room was plunged into darkness, with only a creepy wailing sound coming from the painting. "Ghost! Ghost!" Master Zhang screamed. His magic tools fell to the ground, and he scrambled out of the office. Julian collapsed on the ground, shaking like a sieve. He finally believed that what he had provoked was a force that science could not explain. The news of Master Zhang's escape spread quickly in the circle. Everyone said that Shengshi Group's Mr. Julian had gotten into big trouble, and even the #1 master in Hong Kong couldn't suppress it. Shengshi Group's stock price plummeted again in response. Banks called in loans, partners terminated contracts, and executives resigned. In just half a month, the business empire that Julian had built with his own hands was already crumbling. He began to suspect that the source of all this was related to me, although he couldn't figure out how a madman locked up in a mental hospital could have such amazing abilities. But he still decided to see me again. He wanted to confirm for himself whether I was really crazy or just pretending to be. This time, he didn't bring Penelope. He came to the mental hospital alone, his face so gloomy that water could drip from it. I was still sitting on the bed, looking out the window with no expression. "Scarlet." He spoke, his voice hoarse. I didn't react. "Stop pretending." He walked to the visiting window and stared at me intently. Is it you who is behind the company's problems? I slowly turned my head and looked at him. My eyes were still empty, but the corners of my mouth curled up into a strange smile. Julian, I said softly. Listen, they're singing. Who's singing? Julian asked subconsciously. My friends. I smiled even more happily. They say they like you very much and want to invite you to visit them down below. Julian's pupils shrank suddenly. My words, my expression, were like those of a true madman. But the unease in his heart grew stronger and stronger. Just then Finn walked over. Mr. Julian, visiting time is up, he said expressionlessly. Julian still wanted to say something, but Finn had already made a gesture to see him out. He could only glare at me resentfully and turn to leave. After Julian left, Finn handed me an evidence bag, his face pale. Inside was a used syringe. This is the sample of the drug they injected you with on the day you were admitted. I've already sent it for testing, and the results will be out soon. I also found out that the director received a large sum of money from Julian. He pointed to the scratch on his arm. When I came out just now, a truck suddenly lost control and crashed towards me. If I hadn't dodged quickly. My eyes turned cold. It's Julian's warning. The little ghost I sent to protect him appeared, and told me that it had pushed Finn away in time. Don't worry, I promised him, you'll be fine. Finn looked at me, the trust and resolve in his eyes deepened. Julian's suspicion had turned into murderous intent. He wouldn't allow a potential threat to continue living in this world. He would definitely find a way to make me die, naturally, in this mental hospital. And I was just waiting for him to make his move. Because I had already prepared a big gift for him. Julian acted quickly. He bribed the director and 2 nurses to inject me with a large dose of sedatives tonight. That dose would be enough to cause a normal person's heart to stop, and then be disguised as a sudden myocardial infarction death. Secretly, without anyone knowing. When the little ghost told me the news, it also told me that Finn had overheard it. He wanted to stop it, but I stopped him. Dr. Finn, don't do anything. I relayed to him through the little ghost protecting him. Just bring the police to the door of room 307 at 12 o'clock tonight. But Finn was worried. Trust me. Julian, you're finally going to step into the trap I've prepared for you. Tonight is July 14th, the day the gates of hell are wide open. It's the day when the energy of the entire hospital is the heaviest, and the strength of my friends is the strongest. I wrote Julian and Penelope's birth dates on a piece of yellow paper. Then I summoned all the ghosts. The entire room was filled with gusts of wind and shadows of ghosts. I raised the yellow paper and said to them, everyone, tonight is the time for me to settle the accounts. Julian and Penelope will definitely come here before dawn. I want you to return everything they inflicted on me to them. After it's done, I will perform a ritual to reincarnate all of you and send you to the cycle of rebirth. I sat cross-legged and began to mobilize all my strength to create a huge barrier around room 307. A ghost realm that can only be entered, not exited. At 11:30 midnight, Julian led the 2 bribed nurses quietly to the outside of room 307. To his surprise, Penelope had also come. She wore heavy makeup, but still couldn't hide the haggardness on her face. I must see her die with my own eyes. She grabbed Julian's arm. It's all her. She's the one who made us like this. Julian looked at her almost crazy appearance. A trace of disgust flashed in his eyes, but he didn't say anything after all. He just wanted to get rid of Scarlett as quickly as possible. The nurse opened the door with the key. Julian was the first to walk in, holding the syringe in his hand. He saw me lying quietly in bed, facing away from them. He thought I was asleep. He gave the nurses a look, and they immediately stepped forward, ready to hold me down. Just as their hands were about to touch me, I suddenly turned around. You're finally here. Julian's body suddenly shook. You're not crazy. Of course I'm not crazy. I stood up and walked towards him. You are the ones who are crazy. At the moment the words fell, the iron door of the ward slammed shut. The lights in the room began to flicker wildly, making crackling sounds of electricity. Julian and Penelope saw in horror that pale and twisted faces began to appear on the walls and ceiling of the room. Ghosts! Ghosts! The 2 nurses were so frightened that they ran in panic, but found that the door could not be opened no matter what. Penelope screamed and hid behind Julian, her whole body trembling like a sieve. Although Julian was also pale with fear, he still maintained a trace of reason. He raised the syringe in his hand and roared at me with a fierce look. "Scarlet! Make them all get out of here. Otherwise I'll kill you." I walked up to him, looking straight into his terrified eyes. "Julian, look around you. Who do you think will die first tonight, you or me?" He looked around. The ghosts were closing in on them step by step. Jasper's tall figure blocked the door, the murderous aura emanating from him almost suffocating the living. Stella floated above Penelope's head, blowing cold air into her ear, giggling incessantly. And those ghosts who died in various ways, they stretched out their pale hands, as if to drag these living people into hell. "Don't come over." Penelope completely broke down. She pushed Julian away, knelt on the ground, kowtowing incessantly. "I was wrong. I was wrong. Please, please spare me." The two caregivers also collapsed on the ground, defecating and urinating, begging for mercy nonstop. Only Julian was still standing there, barely holding on. He stared at me, his eyes full of resentment. "It's you. You did all this. You monster." "Monster." I laughed, my laughter full of sarcasm. "Compared to me, you demons in human skin are more like monsters." I snapped my fingers. "Let the feast begin." Instantly, the scene in the entire room changed. They were no longer in the ward, but immersed in one illusion after another made up of their crimes. Julian saw himself back 3 years ago, when he caused a car accident in order to swallow his rival's company, killing a family of 3. The ghosts of that family of 3 were now standing in front of him covered in blood, questioning him. "Why? Why did you kill us?" Penelope saw how she framed her colleagues, stole company secrets, and even drove a man who loved her to jump off a building in order to climb to the top. The ghost of that man repeated over and over in her ear. "Penelope, I loved you so much. Why did you treat me like this?" The two caregivers also saw how they used to abuse patients and disregard human life. They clawed at each other in the illusions. Penelope grabbed a syringe from the ground and stabbed Julian madly. "It's you. You made me like this." Julian strangled his own neck, his face turning purple, roaring out his crimes. "I arranged that car accident. I also bribed the police. I stole the company's tender documents. I drove him to his death." Penelope also cried. "I also drugged Scarlet with Julian and sent her to a mental hospital." They screamed, cried, and revealed all the darkest secrets in their hearts. And all of this was clearly recorded by the ward's surveillance cameras. At that moment, the door of the ward was kicked open. Finn rushed in with several policemen. What they saw was Julian and Penelope and others rolling on the ground like madmen. And I was standing quietly to the side, my expression calm. Finn walked quickly to my side and asked with concern, "Are you all right?" I shook my head and pointed to the surveillance camera above. "The evidence is all here." The police quickly subdued Julian and the others who were completely out of control. When the cold handcuffs were clasped on Julian's wrist, he woke up from the illusion. He looked at me, his eyes full of disbelief. "Scarlet." I walked up to him, looking down at his disheveled appearance, and said word by word, "Julian, do you like this gift I sent you?" Julian and Penelope were temporarily sent to the hospital for identification, due to severe mental stimulation. But the video of their confession, as well as the drug samples provided by Finn and the evidence of the dean's bribery, had formed a complete chain of evidence. What awaits them will be the severe punishment of the law. The Shungshur group collapsed completely. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. Those who once depended on Julian now avoid him like the plague. A seemingly seamless conspiracy finally came to an end in such a bizarre way. The whole city was talking about this legendary case. Some say that Scarlet pretended to be crazy, secretly plotted, and succeeded in revenge. Others say that Julian and Penelope did too much evil and were punished, resulting in hallucinations. But only I know what the truth is. I cleared my name and regained my freedom. The sun was shining just right on the day I was discharged from the hospital. I stood at the gate of the mental hospital, and looked back at this gray building that had trapped me and made me who I am. Finn stood beside me, blocking the reporters who came after hearing the news. "What are your plans next?" he asked. "There's a debt that hasn't been settled yet," I said. "I didn't forget my promise." That night, I returned here again. As agreed, I held a grand ritual of salvation for Jasper, for Stella, and for all the ghosts who had helped me. I used the merit I had accumulated to wash away the resentment from their bodies, and open the door to reincarnation. Golden light enveloped the entire hospital. The ghosts who were once hideous all restored their most beautiful appearance in the light. One by one, they walked up to me and solemnly said goodbye to me. Thank you, Ms. Scarlet. The thin male ghost was vindicated and cupped his fist at me. Thank you for your great kindness. Stella floated to me and gave me a hug. Scarlet, you must be happy. Finally, there was Jasper. The murderous aura on his body had completely dissipated, restoring the uprightness and integrity that a soldier should have. Miss Scarlet, take care. He gave me a standard military salute. General Chun, I looked at him. I have contacted the relevant departments, and they will send people to find your remains and send you home. Jasper's eyes turned red. He nodded heavily and turned to step into the golden light gate. All the ghosts were gone. This haunted house that had been around for a century had finally been truly purified at this moment.